Man, things are really getting crazy out here, man. I mean, wait a minute. Are we really having a conversation about Derek Carr fetching 2 first-round picks? Seriously? Are you guys really serious right now? I mean, what the hell is next? Seriously, what are we talking about here? I can't do this. We're not going to do this, but we are going to do this. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 136th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Lost track of time. And I didn't really realize what time I had set the stream for. I apologize for that. But you guys are hilarious. I was looking at some of the comments. Oh, he might have found a sled. I can't with y'all, man. I won't with y'all. But what we will do today is we'll talk about Derek Carr and this crazy report about the Raiders trying to get a 3-way deal to land Deshaun Watson. This shit's getting out of control. I told you that there were unintended consequences from that Rams-Lions deal. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I'm going to start the show off on a somber note. 2021, we made all of this, fuss about 2020. Oh, my God, can 2020 be over with? So many people died. So many things happened. Obviously, the coronavirus was the biggest story of 2020, and we still haven't, gotten over that yet. But we're taking steps, hopefully, into the right direction to get that situation resolved and kind of get back to a level of normalcy that we're accustomed to as Americans. That said, 2021 hasn't gotten off to a rousing start either. We've lost a lot of people in 2021. Hammer and Hank, Aaron, I hate to even start this list off, because I know I'm going to forget someone that Cicely Tyson, I was talking about Screech the other day, but so many people have died. Ted Thompson died, the Green Bay Packers famed GM. I mean, so many guys and people that I wanted to talk about on this podcast have passed on, and I meant to make mention of it, and I would get on and we would just, something would happen and I would forget. Well, I don't want to forget this because he hasn't passed away yet, but it seems imminent. He was placed in hospice at the end of January, and it seems like the end is near for dear beloved Marty Schottenheimer, one of my favorite NFL head coaches of all time. There's a gleam, men. There's a gleam. One of the most conservative NFL head coaches of all time, but one hell of a winner. Never won the big game. Didn't win in the postseason. That was always his thing. That's all people would like to talk about Marty Schottenheimer about, is that he didn't win the big game. That he didn't get it done. When he was in Cleveland, when he was in Kansas City, when he was in L.A. Or San Diego with the Chargers, he never found a way to win the big game. And so that's always going to be his legacy, is that he was never able to get over the hump. And he had some really good teams. That San Diego team, I think it was 2004, maybe 2005. They didn't win. That was the game they should have won, with Brady's Patriots team beating them. When I think LT might have been the league MVP that year. Phillip Rivers was outstanding. He was a young Phillip Rivers, Antonio Gates. They were the better team. They didn't win. We always think about the fumble, back in Cleveland with Bernie Kosar and Ernest Biner and all of those guys that they had, and Webster Slaughter and all those guys on offense. And they didn't win, and so he'll be remembered for all of those things. Had some really good teams in Kansas City. I liken his time in Kansas City to playing against Jordan in that era, where you might have had some really good teams, but you didn't win because you had to get through Jordan to get to a chip. Same thing with, Brady in the AFC in his era. And they had to get through the Buffalo Bills, and they weren't able to do it. So, for whatever reason, he didn't win in the postseason. A lot of people said he got really tight and conservative when the postseason would come around. And he was already a conservative coach to begin with. But he would become even more conservative when, playoff time would roll around. But above all else, Marty Schottenheimer was a hell of a football coach. He was a hell of a motivator. And he has Alzheimer's. And I remember hearing about this like 2 years ago. And I was like, damn, not you, Marty. But they were taking care of him, and his wife was there. And, he still had, he was hanging on. He still could remember some things, but he wasn't as sharp as he once was. But you can see he was starting to diminish right before our very eyes. It doesn't sound like he's got long left. And so before it even happens, I just want to send out my prayers to Marty Schottenheimer and his family, and talk about the good times with Marty, because that was my guy. And I remember him in Washington in 2001 and thinking he's about to turn this thing around. He's going to turn this thing around in Washington. We started 0-5. They won like the next 6 games or so. I think they had even gotten to 6-5 and were firmly in the postseason. Like, they were not only back to 500, but they surpassed 500, and they looked like they were going to make the playoffs. And then they had some struggles down the stretch, but they finished that season up 8-8 after starting 0-5. And he did it with Tony Banks, and then the running joke was he did it with Tony Banks, Kent Graham, and one audible. Like, we didn't do much, but he knew how to win. He knew how to win. He knew how to motivate guys, and he knew how to get the most out of them. And he was a no-nonsense head coach. And wherever he went, winning followed. So, Marty Schottenheimer, man, stay strong, man, and hang in there as long as you can. But we're thinking about you. So, I wanted to start with that. Don't be surprised if you hear that Marty's gone on to the great beyond here in the next couple of days. It doesn't seem like he's got much time left. So, I just wanted to say my piece now before something happens, and I don't either have a chance to say it or I forget to say it. But with that said, all right, enough of the somber stuff. Let's get to the proceedings this evening. Start with this gem dropping session, shall we? Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. And I want to start right where I begun this podcast, which is with the unintended consequences of the Lions-Rams deal. And I told you there were unintended consequences. We talked about one of those unintended consequences last week, or a matter of fact, last podcast. We talked about it when the trade first happened on Saturday night, and then we talked about it again on Monday. And that's, well, if you can get that for Matthew Stafford, what can you fetch for Deshaun Watson in a trade? And I've seen so many stories since we've had that discussion that have come out about, well, they should get this and they should get that, and it should start here. And I don't know where it's going to start or where it's going to end. I just know that the price obviously has to be elevated if the Texans at some point come around. And I told you, I still don't think that we're going to see him be traded. I read a great article before we get into the shits on this gym dropping session. I read a great article by Andrew Brandt, and he's not my favorite guy. I love his dad way more than I love him. I'll say that. At times he can come off prickish, but I do know he knows football. I don't always agree with him, but he does know the game. And him being an ex-NFL executive and him being an ex-agent, he's got it from both sides, and he can kind of relate to a lot of things that happen, especially when it's contractual. So I read his article that he wrote the other day, and I found it fascinating because he talked about when the Wentz situation first happened that the Eagles weren't going to trade him. And he was one of the few guys that didn't think Wentz was going to get traded. I can say I thought Wentz was as good as gone. And I thought, you know what? It was for the best. And I didn't think it had anything to do with the contract. Like, his contract wasn't terrible. It wasn't great, especially for the Eagles, but it wasn't one of those contracts where you're like, oh my God, how are they going to get out of this thing? If you're not getting the production and you think you can move on from them, then you do it. And I thought that's what they were going to do. And he didn't think they were going to move on. And he was right. ultimately, looks like Carson Wentz going to stand pat in Philadelphia. They're going to try to make it work. But he's also been adamant that Deshaun Watson isn't getting traded. So have I. Now, normally in these situations, when you make statements that way, it's because of the contract. But in this particular situation, it had nothing to do with the contract. It had everything to do with the caliber of player. In the Carson Wentz situation, he had diminished. His value had diminished as a player in this league because he had a bad season and it didn't look like this guy had the level of confidence that we knew he was capable of playing with. So he was at some point, he looked like a reduced item, Hey, this thing's about to expire. So I'm going to put it up front. I'm going to put a little bit of a tag up there. This was $2.99. Now you can get it for $1.18 because we're trying to get rid of it. That's what Carson Wentz felt like going into the latter stages of the 2020 season. Like, he's damaged goods. Let's try to get something for him now while we can. Whereas Deshaun Watson, there's nothing damaged about him. The man just threw for 4,700 yards and led the league in passing. Now, the defense wasn't any good, but he was outstanding this past season, and he's only 25. So when you look at that, I've always told you guys, you can't get equal value when you trade a star player. You can't do it in the NBA. It's hard to do it in Major League Baseball, but at least you feel good about getting some young power arms or a 5-tool player out of somebody's minor league system, somebody's farm system. You feel good about that. May not see the dividends for 3-4 years down the road, but you feel good about that. In the NFL, it's tough. It's hard to really feel like you just got equal value for a superstar. We rarely see a superstar at this age get traded. We just don't. It's not something that we see happen very often. So Andrew Brandt essentially said he doesn't see Deshaun Watson getting traded. And he said the thing that he learned as a front office executive, and he was in Green Bay under Ron Wolf and company and Ted Thompson and all those guys. He talked about how one of the biggest lessons he learned is that nobody cares about a disgruntled player in, March or April or February. Like, you can be disgruntled all you want. You're not playing football for the next 6-7 months. So, okay, fine. You cannot be happy. They don't have to do anything right now. If Deshaun Watson is steadfast on not playing and we get to September, now there's an issue. Now we need to actually start having a serious conversation about doing something about it. And I think that's the position Andrew Brandt is taking. I think the Texans kind of feel that way now. But if you're going to do something with Deshaun Watson, nobody wants you to wait until it's too late for him to get integrated into the new system, team, coaching staff, players, all of that good jazz. If you're going to do something, they want you to do it now. And so ultimately, if nothing happens by the draft, I think it's a safe assumption to make that nothing is going to happen. Because if something is going to take place, I feel like it needs to be on day one of the draft. By day one of the draft. Nothing has to take place right now. We can hear all the rumors that are being boundied about, and that's fine. But if something doesn't take place by day one of the draft, because he's not a day 2 or day 3 of the draft guy. He's a day 1 blockbuster deal type of guy. So if something doesn't transpire by day 1 of the draft, then I don't think anything is going to happen, personally. So we'll see what happens. But he's adamant that he doesn't think anything's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. Now, I find that interesting, but we'll see. But back to my unintended consequences of this deal that we talked about. I told you that with Stafford fetching 2 1s and a 3, let's not forget about their 3rd round pick. That's important too. With Stafford, but the ones are all anybody wants to talk about. With Stafford fetching that for the Detroit Lions at 33 years old, having not really won anything of note in this league. Matthew Stafford right now is a bona fide loser, is what he is. Let's call it what it is, a spade. Matthew Stafford is one of the best losers in the league right now. And I'm not talking about best at losing. I'm talking about he's the best player that just seems to find a way to lose all the damn time. We don't have many of those in the league. Generally, you might not win a Super Bowl, might not win a bunch of playoff games, but if you're a really good quarterback, you generally find a way to will your team to victories. He hasn't been able to do that. He's not an elevate your team type of guy. But he's not going to have to do that in LA. They've got a team ready to win now. That's why they traded what they traded to get him. Forget about all of that, though. The unintended consequences of Deshaun Watson's deal potentially in value going up. Well, obviously, he's not the only one that now has seemingly limitless potential, in terms of value. Like, I'm reading this three-way Raiders deal article, and I'm like, let's see what the hell these Raiders are talking about. Because, first of all, it's nonsense. Everybody's got a Deshaun Watson scenario now. Every team's coming out of the woodworks. And, and look, reporters are looking for stories, and it's an easy sell right now if you've got a Deshaun Watson trade proposal. I'll click on that. You'll click on that. It's great clickbait right now. So even if that's not a true story, even if the Raiders aren't even seriously considering that, it's a great story to put out there, because at this point, any trade rumor involving any quarterback, with the way this offseason is shaping up, it's easy fodder. I mean, it is hook, line, and sinker, a trap for anybody to get caught in. So, I get it. But how long have the Raiders been trying to get out of the Derek Carr business? It seems like for 3 years now running, maybe even 4. They've been trying to get out of the Derek Carr business. And I'm like, first of all, can y'all leave Derek alone? Derek ain't done nothing to nobody, and them boys always trying to got him. I'm like, look, Derek ain't done nothing to nobody, man. Leave this man alone. He's happy in Vegas. Why y'all always trying to uproot this man? So, I remember before the season started, Mike Mayock came out and said, Derek Carr is the unquestioned leader of this team. He's grabbed this thing by the horns. He's poised to have a big-time 2020 season, and everybody's ready to follow him. And what did Derek Carr do? In a massive 2020 season, he was outstanding this year. Threw a bunch of touchdown passes, not a lot of interceptions. He was the reason that they were even being considered for the playoffs late in the season. At one point, I think they were 7-3, maybe 7-4, 6-3, whatever it was. They were good. They looked like they were poised to make the postseason. And then the defense fell the hell apart. And it's not like the defense was ever any good, because they really weren't. They were the only team in the regular season to beat Kansas City when Kansas City legitimately was trying. Yeah, they lost the Week 17 matchup. They rested everybody. The Raiders were the only team to beat them in the regular season, but they had to outscore them. That was a 40-32 game. The defense didn't help. The Raiders did that on offense. Derek Carr was outstanding this year. Yet, all these rumors about Derek Carr being shifted and ousted and whisked away from the Los Angeles Raiders. Or Las Vegas, Raiders. Leave Derek Carr alone. Okay? That's number one. Number two is Derek Carr, for as good as he was this year, and he's got a very affordable contract. Derek Carr right now, his cap number over the next 2 seasons is 19.7 and 19.8. When you add in, workout bonuses and things of that nature. But cap hit wise, base salary wise, 19.5 in 2021, 19.7 in 2022. That's it. You're talking about a shade under $40 million for Derek Carr. It's a great contract, honestly. But if I'm the Raiders, I'm not even interested in trading him, number one. He's not the problem. I've stated this about the Raiders. Can you win with Derek Carr? You're damn right you can win with Derek Carr. You can win with Derek Carr. He's not the problem. Their defense is atrocious. We watched that Thursday night game against the Chargers. It was one of the worst defensive performances I've seen of any defense this season. And we've watched them throw up all over themselves multiple times defensively, like the Dolphins game. Like, their defense is a joke. It has nothing to do with Derek Carr. But let's get one thing straight. Derek Carr is not worth 2 first-round picks. Okay, can we stop the madness? Can we stop with the bullshit and the foolishness and the tomfoolery? Can we stop? Everybody's not worth 2 first-round picks now because the Lions got Matthew Stafford. So the Raiders are like, okay, we can help everybody out here. We can solve this whole Deshaun Watson thing. And I'm not saying this is what the Raiders actually said. I'm just talking about the article. Raiders might not have anything to do with this. But, this is how the article made it seem. This is how the article kind of shaped and phrased this thing. The Raiders were going to do everybody a favor. Hey, look, okay, we got it. We got the answer to this Deshaun Watson problem. Let us handle it. Okay, what you can do is you give us, it felt like they were some kind of investor. And you're like, are you running a pyramid scheme on me right now? Is that what you're trying to do? Okay, look, you give me 2 first-round picks. I'll give you Derek Carr, and then I'll give those 2 first-round picks, and then throw in 2 of my own first-round picks. So that's a total of 4 first-round picks, and we'll get Deshaun Watson. Everybody's happy. Everybody wins. Okay, so you give me 2 first-round picks. I give you Derek Carr. That's not a fair trade. Okay, so don't make it seem like you're doing me a favor here. That's not a fair trade. Oh, don't worry about it. Just give me 2 first-rounders. I'll give you Derek Carr. We'll call it even. You're not doing me a favor. All right, so now they got all these first-round picks, and they're like, we'll take all of those first-round picks that you just gave us, and then we'll toss in the 2 that we still have, and we'll get Deshaun Watson, and everybody's happy. The Texans get all the first-round picks that they can ask for, a bunch of second-rounders too, and we get Deshaun Watson, you get Derek Carr, everybody's happy. No, Vegas, that's not how this goes. That's not how any of this goes. Let's stop the conversation right here with Derek Carr fetching 2 first-round picks. Derek Carr is not worthy of 2 first. If you're not, first of all, if you're not a top 10 quarterback, you shouldn't be commanding anything more than 1 first-round pick, if that at all. So let's calm down a second. Matthew Stafford, I told you where he lied in the NFL pantheon in terms of ranking quarterbacks. He was 7th. I didn't want to give up 2 first-round picks. I still thought it was a steep price to pay, but okay. The Rams, they clearly don't give a shit about first-round picks. They've already established that. We already know that. We've talked about that. So they didn't mind. And again, the second one didn't have anything to do with Matthew Stafford. The second first-round pick, and we've talked about this already, that was strictly for the Lions' troubles. Hey, man, we really appreciate you taking Jared Goff off our hands. That's what the second first-round pick was for. Had nothing to do with Matthew Stafford's own merit. That was strictly for them taking Jared Goff's contract off their hands. That's what the second first-round pick was about. But I digress. People seem to forget that. This is a good contract that Derek Carr has. He'll be a free agent after 2 seasons. So after the 2022 season, going into the 2023 offseason, that's a brand new. He'll be looking for a brand new deal. I assume that he should be getting an extension before then, whether it be with the Raiders or they finally do something with him. But he's not worth 2 first-round picks, man. Come on now. Stop. Derek Carr is not worth 2 first-round picks. There aren't many quarterbacks in this league that are worth 2 first-round picks. But if you're going to have that conversation, you better be young and you better be in the top 10 in this league at the quarterback position. And Derek Carr is not a top 10 quarterback. Derek Carr at times plays like a top 10 quarterback. And I think there is a level of disrespect that Derek Carr has shown in this league that I think is unfair to him. However, he's not a top 10 quarterback. And he's not a guy that should be fetching 2 first-round picks. All right, this thing is getting out of control. Then I read another article. I don't necessarily disagree with this, but Adam Schefter pretty much said that any deal involving Sam Darnold, the Jets feel like they should be able to get a late first-round pick for him. I kind of agree with that. I told you, I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets got a first-round pick for him. Honestly, I think the right amount of compensation for Sam Darnold is a second-round pick, personally. But if somebody gave up the 27th pick in the draft, I wouldn't bat an eye at that. I really wouldn't say, oh, man, they overpaid because we don't know if Sam Darnold can do it or not. Like, I know a lot of people have given up on him. He's got talent. I don't think the Jet situation was a good one for him. He gets in the right situation with the right coaching staff, with a staff that believes in him, a system that fits him, with some talent around him, because he really never had talent with the Jets, you know. And maybe he might actually be somebody's franchise quarterback. Maybe. And I wouldn't mind giving up a first-round pick, you know, if I was one of those teams like Indianapolis, per se. I wouldn't mind giving up a first-rounder to find out. If you believe in Frank Reich's ability to get the most out of a young quarterback, and you believe in your staff and their ability to get the most out of players, then I wouldn't mind, you know, giving up a late first-round pick for a guy like Sam Darnold and seeing what I could see in a one-year tryout, essentially. But I tell you, like I've said this a million times, this whole offseason is going to be wild, but we cannot overreact to some of the things that we've seen transpire. You know, this Stafford deal has sent shockwaves through the league. Obviously, there are ripple effects that we're seeing, and when rumors like the one with Derek Carr, I'm like, what in the Derek Carr is going on right now? 2 first-round picks for Derek Carr? You got to be out of your damn mind. So we need to calm down. We need to take a step back. We need to breathe. Take a deep breath. Exhale. And allow everything to just breathe. Okay? Every trade isn't a good trade. Every player isn't a good fit for every system, you know? But I just think that this whole Stafford, you know, Rams-Lions deal is just insane in how everyone now is approaching everything. And the Deshaun Watson situation. And the Texans are still like, why are you guys talking? We're not trading this guy. Like, they're still adamant that they're not fielding offers. They're not taking calls. And everybody and their mama's got a deal, a trade proposal. And hey, look, we'll give you this, that. We should do this, that, and this and that to get Deshaun Watson. And the Texans are like, hey, we're not even listening to none of this. You can keep your little photoshops of him in a Bears or 49ers or Washington or this team or that team's jersey. We ain't doing any of this shit. But it's, I tell you what, man, every day it's a new article, and every day they get more and more far-fetched, more and more out of control. It's just amazing to me. Anyway, that's going to do it for my gym dropping session today. I just had to talk about another unintended consequence of that Stafford golf Rams-Lions deal. Just crazy right now. But I digress. We move on to social media maneuvers. This is where I allow you guys out there to take over the program. So if you're out there, you want to have your voice heard, if it is pertinent, use the hashtag LouieTeeLive to have your comment read on the air. And we'll talk about anything that you guys want to talk about. Again, I'll answer all of the questions that I can answer, any comments. I will read the comments. Maybe it doesn't, demand a response from me. Maybe it's just you want to say something. Cool. I do want to use this moment, though, to kind of start the conversation about the Super Bowl. We're going to talk. Friday's podcast will be strictly Super Bowl 55. It'll be dedicated to the game itself. I do want to start the conversation here, though, with my first look at Super Bowl 55. I'm not talking about anything in terms of the actual game itself, just kind of some ancillary stuff, kind of hanging around, that I find interesting about this Super Bowl. Obviously, it's Brady Mahomes. That's the main attraction. There was a scare with Super Bowl 55. You had 2 Chiefs players that had come in contact with someone, so there was an issue there, but everybody's tested negative the last 2 days, so seems like all systems go in terms of everybody being healthy and COVID-free and ready to go. You'd hate for the last game of the season for something to be tainted, so I'm glad that situation got nipped in the bud quickly. But you look at the injury situation for both teams. I think both teams are going to be relatively healthy. I do know that Antonio Brown, who didn't play in the championship game against the Packers, he's right now still limited. The 2 weeks, really 3 weeks off, haven't done him any justice to the point now where I'm like, man, how severe is his knee injury anyway? I think he's going to play. I mean, this is what he's essentially been working his entire career to get to. I'm not sure if he were a member of the Steelers when they went to the Super Bowl last in 2000, and I want to say it was 10 against the Green Bay Packers. I don't know if he was a member of the Steelers then or not. I don't have my device next to me to be able to check and see. But either way, he wasn't there in 2009 when they won it against the Cardinals. They didn't win it in 10, so he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. So I think he desperately wants to be a part of this. This is why you play the game, to try to hoist the Lombardi. He hasn't done it in his career, I don't think. So I would like to think that this is a big opportunity for Antonio Brown. And so I think this is something that he's going to try to play through if he can. That said, the Chiefs look like they're going to be at full strength minus their left tackle, which could be a problem. Eric Fisher tore his Achilles in Championship Sunday against Buffalo. That was the biggest, setback. One of the few things that went wrong for them in that game was his injury. We've seen this Buccaneers defensive line take over games and really impact the outcome. They did it against the Packers. They got after Aaron Rodgers. They sacked him 5 times. They harassed him. They made him uncomfortable. And so we know they're fully capable of really destroying a game with JPP and Shaq Barrett and Ndamukong Suh and all those guys up front if you allow them to. So not having Eric Fisher is a big deal, but getting Samuel Watkins back, y'all give it up for Mr. Sammy Watkins. Having him back in the lineup is a big deal because he, to me, is the X factor. I've always said this. You guys have heard me say this a million times when it comes to the Chiefs. Because you can try to double team, Tyreek Hill over the top. Makes a ton of sense. You can try to take away Travis Kelce. But even if you succeed in doing that, slowing Kelce down, double teaming Hill, and minimizing his impact, you don't have enough defenders to then also pay attention to Sammy Watkins. And what did we see last Super Bowl? The Chiefs or the 49ers made a concerted effort to take away Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce's impact was minimal. Who got him? Who was the guy that went over 100 yards in that game? Samuel Watkins. So to me, he's the X factor. Looks like he's going to be ready to go for the Super Bowl. And that's a big get for that offense. It just gives them another boost. And I told you, I'm not confident in Tampa Bay's secondary. So to add another weapon to what is already a dangerous Kansas City Chiefs offense and very explosive, it's hard for me to see them if they don't get to Mahomes, and that'll be the key in this game. If they can't get to Mahomes, I just don't see how they'll be able to stop that offense with that secondary that I feel like is very suspect. It was something that was really odd to me that I never thought about this because it doesn't seem like this, but Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski are the same age. Did you guys know that's something that resonated with you? Like, was that something in the forefront of your mind? Because for me, it just seems like Gronk is like 5 years older than Travis Kelce. Like, Gronk's been in the league way longer. Kelce's still playing at a very high level. The man had over 1,400 yards receiving this past season. At one point, he was in a position to lead all receivers, not tight ends, all receivers, pass catchers in yards this season. He finished in the top 3 of the league. Meanwhile, Gronk he's still a fixture, but he's not the Gronk that we knew in New England, say 4 years ago, 5 years ago when he was at his apex. So it seems like one guy is still, a formidable player, but he's not what he once was. And the other guy is thriving and they're the same age. I didn't really realize that. And then, there's, again, the Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes dynamic. A lot of people are going to talk about that, and rightfully so. But I thought that was interesting that those two tight ends really respect each other. They're both future Hall of Famers. They kind of mirror one another. I remember everybody used to call Kelce Baby Gronk. And so there's a lot of similarities between these two teams when you look at how dynamic they are offensively, how both teams have so much so many weapons. There was this article that talked about Scotty Miller calling himself the fastest player in the league and that he thinks he's faster than Tyreek Hill. And, Tyreek ain't want none of that because he was like, man, get out of my face. This guy ain't faster than me. But whatever. If he feels like he's faster than me, cool. That's good for him. Like, I'm not going to get into a contest about that. So I can tell you that they've got just as many weapons on their side offensively in Tampa Bay as the Chiefs do on their side of things. I think the weapons on Kansas City's side are more consistent. They've been here, they've done that. They know what they have to do. They're better than the weapons in Tampa Bay, but the Buccaneers aren't, they don't have a lack of weaponry. They don't have a shortage at the skill positions, at the running back position, at tight end. Just imagine if they would have had O.J. Howard, how many more weapons that they would have had at their disposal had he been in the mix as well. So they're talented up front. Their offensive line has done a much better job than I thought they were going to do. And so we'll talk about all those things on Friday. Let's get to your comments real quick. Let's see what we got. I'll knock out some comments and then we'll move on. This first one is from Rich. He says, Lou, for the first time in a very long time, I'm going into this Super Bowl neutral. No team or certain player I love, even though, unlike the rest, I don't hate Brady. I always go into the Super Bowl just looking for a good game. That's usually my stance. This year, I'm going to be rooting like hell for the Chiefs just because I don't want Brady to win a Super Bowl in the NFC in his first year. I didn't even want him in the Super Bowl his first year. So the fact that he's here, I can't do anything about that now, but I can't stop his ass from winning a championship the first year. If he wins it next year, okay, cool. I don't have any problems with that. I hate the fact that they may be in a Super Bowl 2 years in a row, but that speaks to his greatness if they're able to do that. But I just want to see a good game. That's when I don't have a dog in the fight. I just want to see a good game, and generally, that's how I am. In the Super Bowl, I just want to see a good game. Ben says, I will always be a Washington fan, but I grew up in Tampa. Really hope they get the win. The club I work at is less than a mile from the stadium. This is huge for us. Everyone is buzzing. Oh, I bet they are. Again, I talked to Buccaneers fans for years, and they never envisioned themselves being here. They were always, a joke, or they were always a laughing stock. And, they could never get over the hump. They'd be 9-7, and then they think the next year, this is going to be our year. We're going to make the playoffs. And then they regress to take a step back and be 8-8 or 7-9. And they just kept going in circles. And so Brady just shows up on their doorstep, and they go from 7-9, 8-8 ball club with a bunch of talent to now Super Bowl contenders and in the Super Bowl, hosting the first ever Super Bowl at that team's home stadium. I mean, it's amazing. So I bet the city is buzzing for sure. Could you imagine if this wasn't in a coronavirus era, in pandemic situation? Like, could you imagine what it would be like in Tampa right now? It'd be crazy. See, I got another comment here from Kevin the PRF. Thank you for the comment. Kevin the PR writes, oh, there you are. Thought you were traded to Houston as a part of the package. Yeah, I was a little tardy today. I'm not going to lie about that. But no, I'm not a part of the deal, man. I am, however, worth for 2 first-round picks. Dustin Hobson, who's your dream free agent acquisition? I don't have a dream free agent. Like, I don't really salivate over specific guys. There are guys that I would prefer us to go after, but nobody out here is truly going to come in and like, there's no Reggie White out here in free agency, a guy that you go out and get and it moves the needle that much that you end up winning the Super Bowl. Like, there's no Deion Sanders out here, a guy that you get as a hired assassin and he's gonna sway the power, the balance of power in the conference. I don't have a dream free agent acquisition. There are specific positions I'd like them to target, but I don't have any guy in particular, because at the end of the day, I don't get wrapped up in wanting a guy so bad that if we don't get him, I'm upset. I think I know what they're gonna do, so I've already kind of wrapped my brain around that. Kevin the PRF says, loved Marty for one of the best turnarounds of the Snyder era, even though his sole first round draft choice was the worst of the Snyder era. Never said that Marty was a great personnel guy. Marty was great at getting the most out of the talent that he had, but that's part of the reason you don't like giving coaches the ability to make draft selections, because when you give a coach full autonomy over everything, personnel, decisions, it never usually goes well. I remember Mike Holmgren having, the power to do all those things. Mike Shanahan having that as well. It just never going well when that happens. So, Marty he was a one of a kind guy in the sense that he was a hard ass. He was a yeller, a screamer, but he was a motivator, and it was never pretty with Marty. It was usually 13-10. 19-16, but he got results. At the end of the season, you'd look up and Marty's team was 13-3. Marty's team was 14-2. Marty's team was 12-4. And you can't say that about a lot of teams, and a lot of coaches in this league. Jordan Jones says, just out of curiosity, how long does it take you to make those Sunday night overtime cue cards, or whatever it's called, with the stats and the score of the games before you go live? 3 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. Honestly, it only takes time because I gotta wait to the end of the game to see what the final stats are gonna be. Like, usually I try to put the winning team stats up there. So if you got a quarterback and a receiver that went off that night and you won, I'll put those two guys up there. But if it's a shootout and both quarterbacks were phenomenal, then I'll put both quarterbacks up there, one from each team. And, one of those quarterbacks is losing, so they're probably throwing the football at the end of the game. So the stats continuously change. So I've got to wait till the game's over. And that's what takes the longest. It would really only take me a minute to do it. But I got to wait until they've thrown their final pass and they're taking knees or whatever. And then I can put the stats up there. So it doesn't take long, though. Once you've got the template set, you're pretty much ready to go. Got a comment here from Niners fan. What do you think about Andrew Luck rumors? I haven't heard any of them, but I told you I was shocked that I hadn't heard anything. I think I brought this up like a month ago or so. I was like, man, I was wrong about Andrew Luck, because when he first retired, I said he'll be back. He'll be back in about 2 years. I haven't heard anything about Andrew Luck. Now, you're the first person that I've heard bring his name up. But I said once his body heals, he's going to miss the game. He'll be back. He'll be back. I haven't heard his name at all. So I am shocked that maybe he really is done. I haven't heard any Andrew Luck rumors, but I don't think he's coming back, man. I think I was wrong about that. Ali Saad says, I'm interested in trading with the Texans. I want Watt, not Watson. Defense is our main priority. I know Gruden is interested, but not going to happen. Carr is right outside of the top 10. Absolutely. Carr is not a top 10 quarterback, but he's not that far off. He's somewhere in that, 11 to 13 range. He's somewhere in that mix. If I sat down and made a list, he'd probably end up 12th or 13th or something like that. After I've made my list and sat down and kind of analyzed where, and a lot of people, the problem with people is that they want to project. They want to put Justin Herbert in front of them. They want to put Joe Burrow in front of them. They want to put Kyler Murray and guys that haven't done it yet, that haven't played at a high enough level for enough time to put them in. They're projecting. Yeah, in 2 years, Kyler Murray's going to be light years ahead of Derek Carr. And you may think he's better than him right now. And look, if you ask me who would I rather have, yeah, I'll take Kyler Murray. But he's not a better quarterback than Derek Carr right now. He's not. Stop. Justin Herbert is not a better quarterback than Derek Carr right now. He's not. Joe Burrow is not. All right? So you gotta, but those are the types of people that will swear you up and down. Oh my God, Derek Carr is a 15th, 16th best quarterback. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's better than that. Your defense is atrocious. So yes, that was one of the hardest things to watch last year was the Raiders defense. So I get it. And in that deal, I've heard deals that made Watson and Watt a package deal. Like, I don't think they're a package deal. I think they're two separate entities. And so we'll see what happens there. Bob Esther says, I can name 3 different quarterback situations that are not jumbled. Buffalo, Kansas City, and the Bucs. There's so many quarterbacks on the move. We talked about that on the program already, about quarterback situations. Remember, Adam Schefter had the tweet, and we did a whole gym dropping session on it about how many changes at the quarterback position we're going to see. Adam Schefter put the number at 18, the over-under number at 18. He went over. I went under. But I think 18 is a good number to set it at. It's a little aggressive, but I think it is, it's a fair number. And I think it's under. But you listed Buffalo, Kansas City, and the Bucs. I think there are a bunch of other quarterback situations that you could put in there and say they're not moving. Those are definites, with Brady more likely than not coming back. But there are other teams that I feel really confident about, saying they're not doing anything. There may be rumors, they're not doing anything. The Vikings aren't moving Kirk Cousins. They're not doing anything. The Falcons aren't moving. I already laid that out for you. It costs them money to move Matt Ryan. They're not moving Matt Ryan. He's not going anywhere. Like, there's some quarterback situations that are, you didn't even mention Seattle. Like, Seattle's not doing anything at quarterback. The Chargers aren't doing anything at quarterback. The Browns aren't doing anything at quarterback. The Cardinals aren't doing anything at quarterback. Like, there's a bunch of teams you could put in that mix. Kevin the PRF says, from golf's perspective, I wonder how many players over the years, upon hearing that they may be traded to Lions, any chance I can renegotiate my contract? It's funny, just, taking it from golf's perspective. He's saying, I really hope that this could do wonders for my career. And I'm like, I don't know if you've been paying attention or not over the last 60 years, but not many guys go to Detroit and have it do wonders for their career at the quarterback position. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. So, good luck. I wish nothing but the best of luck to Jared Goff. He's going to need it in Detroit. He really is. HHC Lunar says, I would rather have Darnold than pick Mac Jones, to be honest. I mean, again, that's beauty's in the eye of the beholder. If you want a pocket passer, then you probably prefer Mac Jones. If you want a guy that has some athleticism, can throw from the pocket, but is going to offer you a little bit more mobility and the ability to extend plays and make things happen, then you go with Darnold. There's upside with Sam Darnold. That's the thing I'm trying to convey to everyone, is that Sam Darnold isn't a lost cause. He's not a guy that is without talent. Or he's not a guy that's without talent, I should say. You can get something from Sam Darnold if the situation is correct. The only problem with Darnold is you got 1 year to figure it out. That's tough. It's tough to figure it out in 1 year. But somebody's gonna pull the trigger, and that was another thing that Andrew Brandt said in his article that I found fascinating, is that he says Sam Darnold's not going to be traded. I don't believe that to be the case. Like, I told you there's a chance he could not be traded, but to me, if you're the Jets, it doesn't make any sense to hold on to him if he's not the future in New York, and he's not. You know that. They're going to draft a quarterback at 2. So if you need a stopgap, you can sign Ryan Fitzpatrick. Again, he says he wants to play. You can sign Ryan Fitzpatrick. It might be a little bit more pricey than Sam Darnold on the last year of his rookie deal. It's only $9 million. Yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit more if you want to sign Ryan Fitzpatrick to a one-year deal. Probably going to cost you, somewhere in that $13, $14 million neighborhood. Okay, I get that. You don't want to pay that. And Darnold could be a stopgap for you. Cool, I understand that too. But what's more important? Using him as a stopgap or squeezing every ounce of draft capital out of him that you can at this point? To me, you can find a stopgap anywhere. I'm more concerned with, hey, I could either, move on from him now and get a first, no worse than a second, or I could have him be my stopgap for 1 year and get a third-round compensatory pick for him in the offseason. Like, that's not what I'm looking to do. I'm trying to squeeze every bit of draft capital out of Sam Darnold. So we'll see what they decide to do. There's a lot of people that probably feel the same way you do, HHC Lunar, that they'd rather have Darnold for 1 year than draft Mac Jones. But we'll see what ultimately happens with him. Let's check and see if we got some more comments worth taking. Got a couple more comments that I do want to get to. Kevin the PRF says, you said the other night you don't see Washington football team signing Sweat to a second contract. So why would you draw the line on him being to get an elite quarterback long term? Oh, it's simple. Because there's a window of opportunity. And I laid that out for you the other night. Just because I don't think they're going to be able to sign him to a long-term deal. First of all, we don't know what they're going to be able to do. I'm projecting because it's hard to sign two guys to a $100 million contract plus and one of them not be a quarterback. It's hard to do that. But even with that being said, even knowing that there's a likelihood that he won't be back after his rookie deal is up, you can still extract all the value out of that first round pick that you can. With Montez Sweat on the defense, they have a chance to be the best defense in football. Because you got one guy on one side terrorizing you in Chase Young, and then you got Montez Sweat terrorizing you on the other side. Nobody else in the league has that right now, by the way. There's some teams with some tag teams back again, but they don't look like Montez Sweat and Chase Young. The upside isn't as great as it is with Montez Sweat and Chase Young. If those dudes turn into what we think they are going to ultimately become, they've got a chance to wreck shop in this league. You could be talking about one guy with 15 and a half and the other guy with 13. That's what Green Bay did a couple of years ago with the Smith brothers. And it wasn't 15 and 13. It was like maybe 15 and 11, or 12, but it was still dominant. You could be talking about that. And it could be 17 and 15 or 15 and 13. And that's amazing. And you could be doing that for a 3-4 year stretch because he's still got 3 years left on his rookie deal. And if you felt like we are on the cusp of winning a chip with this defense, you could even franchise tag him and extend that rookie deal out 1 more year. So you could get 6 years of service out of Montez Sweat if you want it before you let him walk. That means you've got a window of another 4 years essentially. 3rd year, 4th year, 5th year, that 6th year if you decide to franchise him. You got a window of 4 years of having an elite defense that could carry you to a Super Bowl. You don't trade that to me. You don't trade that. Even if it means getting a Deshaun Watson, because you can get Watson, you can give up what Sweat, and the defense could take a massive step back because teams now say, oh, we just got to block 99. We just got to block Chase Young now. Double team him, triple team him. I don't worry about any of your other guys hitting home. Now you're back at square one, essentially, with a dominant player that won't see the light of day because he's not Aaron Donald. He's not beating double teams consistently, not yet at least. He's not doing that. So you got to make them pay. If they want to take their tight end and they want to chip, they want to double team with the guard, that means you're getting singled up on the other side. They can't double team everywhere. That's why I wouldn't trade him. Because in this window, we just made it to the playoffs at 7-9 with 4 different starting quarterbacks. And the defense is just scratching the surface. Who knows what they could be, say, 2 years from now. They could be the #1 defense in the league and it's not even close. And they're taking over ball games. Now it doesn't really matter who the hell's that quarterback. You got a shot. That's why I won't trade him. I got a super chat. All right. Super chat is from Zach Kallstrom. Thank you for the super chat. Zach, who writes, alrighty, Lou, no BS. What's your gut telling you about who will be under center week 1 in September? I'm not going to get into specifics. I'm going to save it for the show tomorrow night. But I'm going to tell you this. Excuse me. Ron Rivera has made it abundantly clear that, and I'm not going to say too much more about this. Ron Rivera has made it abundantly clear he's not confident in any of the guys that we have on the roster. He's made that clear with his actions. He can say whatever he wants out of his mouth. He's made it abundantly clear that he's seen enough Kyle Allen to know what he thinks he is. He's seen enough Taylor Heineke to know what he thinks Taylor Heineke is. And he knows Alex Smith can't stay healthy for 16 games. He's not comfortable going into the season with what he has. Now, he may ultimately not have a choice. You know, they may have to start Kyle Allen. And I think he's comfortable. I'll save all of that for tomorrow night. I've already said too much. Just know, I can't give you what you're looking for right now. I honestly don't know. But if I had to guess, if you put a gun to my head and said, I need a decision, Louie, right now, I'd say Kyle Allen is your week 1 starter right now. That's what I would say. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Just know tomorrow we will talk about it at great lengths on Washington Football Live. Washington Football Report Live tomorrow night. Got another super chat here from Zach Kallstrom. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Zach. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Zach writes, also in a redraft, would you take Herbert over Chase? No, I already told you. That question was posed to me last year. Knowing what I know now about what Justin Herbert has turned into, and would I take him over? No, I want Chase Young. I want the elite edge rusher. Like, you can get lucky and find a quarterback elsewhere. If this defense turns into what we think it can be, you don't need Justin Herbert to win. Justin Herbert, a guy like him, if he is in fact what we think, and it's only 1 year, it's only a small sample size, but if he is what we think he's going to be, and he turns out to be a stud for the next decade plus, that gives you a much bigger window of opportunity to win. But it doesn't solve all of your problems, and that's what people fail to realize. Yeah, that's going to give you a great chance to win every single season. How many Super Bowls does Russell Wilson have? 1. How many times has he been close since the Seahawks defense went from being elite and dominant to just average to not as good? How many Super Bowls does he have? How many Super Bowl appearances, taking a step further, does he have? 0. Okay? Aaron Rodgers probably won the Super Bowl, arguably in his best season, but his defense was damn good that year too. All right, probably one of the better defenses he's played with in his career. And they weren't good record-wise. Remember, I want to say the Packers were either a 6 seed or a 5 seed. But it doesn't matter. You need defense in this league. Contrary to popular belief, everybody thinks you can just win a Super Bowl. If you don't have Patrick Mahomes, and nobody is Patrick Mahomes. There's only one of those in the league. You don't have Patrick Mahomes. Even Tom Brady. He's won a bunch of Super Bowls. And a lot of them has been off the strength of Tom Brady's heroics and late game situations and his execution to be surgical. But you know what else Tom Brady has benefited from? Elite Patriot defenses. You need defense in this league to win. And so I'm not taking Justin Herbert over Chase Young because I know Chase Young gives me a chance. And we're gonna find. I'm optimistic to think we're gonna find a guy. Homegrown, not homegrown. We're gonna find a guy that's going to give us a chance. But you don't get opportunities to draft. You heard what Mike Tomlin said. You got to lose a certain amount of games to get a Chase Young. Russell Wilson was a 3rd round pick. I hate to use that as an example because it's rare that you're going to find a guy like Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. But what I'm telling you is you don't have to draft in the top 3 to get a quarterback that can help you win. Derek Carr is a 2nd round pick. You can win with Derek Carr. You can win in this league with Derek Carr. You don't have to have the number 1 or number 2 or number 5 pick in the league at quarterback to win ball games and to have a legitimate chance to win a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, again, should have been the number 1 pick in that draft in 2005, but he was the 26th pick in the draft. Okay? You don't have to get that guy at number 5 or number 2, but you do have to get Chase Young at number 2. You're not getting Chase Young at, 17. You're not getting Chase Young at, 77 in the 3rd round, generally speaking. I mean, elite rushers, the best of the best. Aaron Donald was 11, I believe. That's as far back as you're going to go. And he's not an edge rusher. He's an interior defensive lineman. Von Miller was the number 2 pick in the draft. Myles Garrett, number 1. You looking for an elite edge rusher? It's coming in the top 5 picks more likely than not. So, no, I wouldn't take Justin Herbert over Chase in a redraft. I want Chase Young all day long and twice on draft Thursday. So, I'll take Chase Young again. Kevin the PRF, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Kevin the PRF writes, don't be humble. You're worth 5 firsts and 2 young YouTubers. I don't think I'm worth 5 first-round picks, but I do think I'm worth a couple of firsts, maybe a second, and definitely 2 young YouTubers. I think I am worth that. But 5 is a little excessive. I don't think I'm worth 5 first-round picks. But definitely, I would want 2 young YouTubers in exchange. Absolutely. 2 guys on the come-up. I want 2 of those dudes. Great potential on their channels. Thank you for those super chats, guys. Let's get back to the comment section. HHC Lunar says 2020 Chiefs versus 99 Rams. Who is better? I honestly think that the 2019 Chiefs offensively were more dynamic than the 2020 version. That said, I think that the Chiefs are a better team than the 99 Rams. The 99 Rams actually were better defensively than people give them credit for. But I think that when you look at the Chiefs, they're just more explosive. Yeah, the Rams had, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, and Marshall Faulk. And if you want to throw in Oz Hakeem, go right ahead. Knock yourself out. But the Chiefs have more weapons, man. The Chiefs could go 5-6 deep on you, skill-wise, guys. Like, the Rams had 3 elite dudes that you had to try to game plan and stuff. They didn't have any tight ends that you were worried about. You didn't have to worry about the tight end position hurting you with that offense. And an elite quarterback who's playing at a ridiculous level, but he was a pocket passer. You could get after him. But he was playing at a stupid level. Kurt Warner was playing at a ridiculously high level. I'll just say this. If you were to tell me that Mac Jones would turn into Kurt Warner, I'd want to draft. I mean, that's not saying. If you told me he had that kind of upside, and I don't believe he does, but if you told me he had that kind of upside, there was even a chance that he could be that, I'd draft Mac Jones at 19. I don't think he's that, though, because that's what it's going to take. If you're going to be a primarily a pocket passer, that's what it's going to take, is you're going to have to be able to be cerebral back there and create a little bit more time with pocket mobility, and you're going to have to see the field quickly and get rid of it. But I'd take the 2020 Chiefs over the 99 Rams. HHC Lunar says, don't forget Hall of Fame announced Saturday. That's right. I forgot about that. I did forget that they're going to announce who gets in. We already know Peyton Manning's getting in, and I haven't looked at the list of guys that are finalists, but you know what? I'll save that for another podcast. JP says, I'm personally glad for Tampa Bay and our boy Rarely Even. I know he's got to be psyched. He is, man. I hate that I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to him throughout this entire process because he was stoked. He was so amped, and he's been waiting so long for this. Like, that's the only reason that, like, a little piece of me doesn't want Tampa to lose just for my man Reed. Like, I can't stand to see Tom Brady do this in year one. And one of my best friends is a diehard Buccaneers fan, and I will never hear the end of it. He was so shitty after they won against Green Bay. Like, I wanted to slap the shit out of him. He was so extra after they beat Green Bay. I can't stand to hear his mouth if they win this Super Bowl. So there's so many reasons I don't want Tampa Bay to win. But in the back of my mind, there's a corner of my heart that's like, man, for Reed, I want this so bad for him. But everything else kind of overshadows that. But if they won, that's the only reason I wouldn't be super pissed, is because I'd be so happy for Reed. And fans like him, Atlas and guys like that have been rocking with me for the longest time, that are diehard Buck fans, that have waited for this moment. I'm happy for those guys. Dog says, in free agency, we trade for a quarterback. Would you then trade up in the draft to get Pitts, wide receiver, or a developmental quarterback? If you trade for a quarterback in free agency, then the likelihood is you had to give up a first round pick. They're not looking to trade for just anybody, just to say we got a veteran, on our roster. Like I'll give you an example. They're not looking to trade for Teddy Bridgewater, the Black Alex Smith. And that might take a third round pick or something. I don't see them doing that. If they trade for a quarterback in free agency, that means they don't have a first round pick anymore, which means you can't trade up for Pitts or a receiver. And if you trade for a quarterback, the likelihood of you wanting a developmental quarterback, and again, when we be careful of the phrases that you use, developmental quarterbacks aren't taken in the first round. That's, again, we don't draft developmental quarterbacks in the first round. So again, watch the way you phrase things. Nobody's drafting. You draft franchise quarterbacks in the first round, not developmental quarterbacks. Okay, those two things don't go in the same sentence. A developmental guy could turn into a franchise quarterback, but the likelihood of that is slim and none. You draft developmental guys in the third or the fourth or the fifth or the sixth or the seventh. You take a guy in the first or the second round, you're not looking for that guy to be a developmental quarterback. You're looking for that guy. Jalen Hurts wasn't drafted to be a developmental quarterback last year in the second round. He was drafted for an insurance policy in case they didn't think Carson Wentz was going to regress the way that he did. I told you what Howie Roseman's thought process was. He looked at that playoff game the year prior and he said, if we would have had a guy like Jalen Hurts, we would have won. Instead, we had an 877-year-old Josh McCown who couldn't get it done. He just drafted him as an insurance policy. And Wentz has been injured so many times that they've had to have somebody save the day. Foles in 17, Foles again in 18. So he said, you know what? I just want to make sure that if anything happens to Wentz, we got a guy. We got a guy. You don't draft a developmental guy in the second round. That's not what you're looking to do. Not in the first round, not in the second round. Third and later, yeah, knock yourself out. I don't think that they would trade up for Pitts or receiver, or have the ability to do so if they traded for a quarterback in free agency. I think that would take their first round pick more likely than not. But we'll see. Gregory Lightbody says, oh, hold on, I got a super chat. Super chat from T Church. Thank you for the super chat, T Church. Greatly appreciate you. T Church writes, what's your opinion of Jamie Newman? I wish he didn't opt out this year. That's the thing that has really made it tough. You're going to have to go back and evaluate his 2019 film, just like everybody else. I mean, he's no different than most of these guys that opted out of the 2020 season. There's a lot of guys that are going to be in this draft that have absolutely no film from, and you know what? I'm fine with that. But it sucks for him because everyone, including myself, was dying to see him play at a major program like Georgia against SEC competition week in, week out, and to see how he was going to fare. It's one thing to be carving up the ACC and the likes of Pitt and NC State and Virginia Tech. It's one thing to be carving up Florida State, who stinks all of a sudden now. something totally different to be going up against Florida and Tennessee, even though Tennessee stinks too. But, you know, Florida and all those SEC East teams that they would have had to go against. You know, you're not going to get to see that, obviously. And it is what it is, you know. I think I've already said this, and I've got film work to do, so I'm not gonna speak in definites when it comes to Jamie Newman. But I told you, he's got everything you're looking for. He's got the size, he's got the build, he's got the arm talent, he's got the mobility, he's got everything you're looking for. You know, he's got toughness. What the film's gonna tell me is, how well does he see the field? How quickly does he make decisions? You know, that's something I can't speak to right now. But like I said, give me 3 weeks. I've already started the process. I can tell you right now, next week we will start the Draft 101 prospects series, and we will start it with a bang. And I got a whole rollout for you guys next week. We'll talk about that as we get closer to that date. But give me 3 weeks. I'll probably have just about, you know, the vast majority of the quarterbacks that I feel like have a draftable grade, on them in this year's draft and done. And, you know, we'll be able to have a real conversation about every single one of these quarterbacks, including Jamie Newman. But I can tell you right now, that he looks the part. I see an interesting comment here from Dog. Dog says, sorry, Lance is developmental and you would have to go and get him. You are right from the standpoint that he feels developmental, but in this league, there's no such thing as developmental first round picks anymore. You used to could draft a guy and sit him. Like, I'll give you an example. The best example we've seen of this is Jordan Love. The Packers traded up to get him, had no intentions of playing him. They wanted him to sit and learn and develop. But he's not developing because they didn't think he could come in and play. He's sitting and developing because Aaron freaking Rodgers is still playing at a very high level and is going to win the MVP this year. If there was no Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love would have already seen an NFL field in some kind of capacity. So what I'm telling you is, if Trey Lance gets drafted 4th overall by the Atlanta Falcons, he'll sit and develop. Why? Because they've got a quarterback that is still playing at a high level. But if there was no Matt Ryan, he'd be playing, even if he didn't start the season off. Look at how many guys get drafted, whether we think they're ready or not. Look how many guys get drafted in the first round and play in their rookie season. The Eagles told us Carson Wentz isn't playing. They had Sam Bradford. They had Chase Daniel. They said Carson Wentz isn't playing this year. And Teddy Bridgewater snaps his leg in two. They trade Sam Bradford for a first-round pick. I don't blame them. And they tell Chase Daniel, hey, about you starting, we're going to start the young fella. You stay right at number 2. The same year, or it might have been the year before that. I think it was the year before that. Might have been the same year. I feel like it was the same year. The Jaguars told us that we have no interest in playing Blake Bortles. None. We got Chad blaming on the Henny. We're not even going to make him active on game days. I think Henny got hurt in like week 4, and he was in there. For whatever reason, the Chargers had no intentions. How many times we heard, well, you know, Justin Herbert needs some time. He needs time to develop. Well, Tyrod Taylor gets hurt. Team doctor and physician can't inject a needle properly. And Justin Herbert's in week 2 and doesn't look back. The only reason guys don't play immediately early on is somebody in front of them is playing at a ridiculously high level. Teams don't draft quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes was drafted and he sat for a year. But he played in his rookie season. Played that final game, week 17. Didn't have anything online. He played week 17. But he sat for a year. That's as good as it usually gets in this league. You sit for a year, and that's rare nowadays. That used to be the norm. Carson Palmer sat behind John Kitna for an entire year in Cincinnati. That doesn't happen anymore, though. Mahomes is the exception to the rule. People try to make him out to be the norm. He's not the norm. He's an outlier. Teams don't do that anymore. So I don't think that you're right in the sense that Trey Lance would be developmental from the standpoint. He's only played 1 year of college football. But guess what? Mitchell Trubisky only played 1 year of football. Dwayne Haskins only played 1 year of college football. We see it all the time. Those guys needed time. Guess what? They played relatively early on in their careers. Maybe to their detriment. If Trey Lance, he couldn't land in a better spot than Atlanta because he needs time. I guarantee you if he goes to the Jets number 2 overall, he'll be playing at some point in 2021. I guarantee you he'll start multiple games. Not just a game, he'll start multiple games. So much for developing him, right? If he goes to Atlanta and Matt Ryan stays healthy, he won't see the field. He didn't need to. Unless the Falcons stink again and they get to week 13 and they're out of this thing. And then you know what they say? Hey, let's see what the young fella has. Let's give him a couple snaps. See what he's talking about. So, yeah, you could argue that Trey Lance would be developmental, but there's no such thing as a first round or a second round developmental quarterback really anymore. Those guys play very early on. You know, you get to the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th round, those guys don't have to play. You know, nobody's really clamoring to see what that guy can do. You didn't hear one Colts fan last year talking about, hey man, I want to see Jacob Eason get in. Nobody gives a shit about Jacob Eason. That's why everyone's like, hey, can we get Stafford? Nobody's talking about Jacob Eason. Why? He's a developmental quarterback. Those guys rarely end up being your franchise guy. So when you use the term developmental, understand that that's not usually reserved for first and second round picks. Had Jacob Eason been the Colts' second round pick, I guarantee you Colts fans are like, hey, we don't need to do nothing. Let's see what Eason has. It's amazing what we do with players because of where they're drafted. Coaches do the same thing. Guys get reps based upon what their draft status is. You might be a 4th round pick and you're getting all these reps, and the guy that's undrafted might be better than you. This system may suit him perfectly. He may be better. But that guy that is undrafted, he's going to have to work his ass off and work 5 times harder than the guy that was the 4th round pick, because they're going to do everything in their power to try to get that 4th round pick every opportunity to make the team and prove them right, essentially. That we drafted a guy and we got it right. And we see that happen all the time with these quarterbacks. Anyway, I digress. But no, that was a good comment, dog. Like, don't make it seem, I don't want you, that was a fair comment that he is a developmental quarterback, because you look at him and you say 1 year of starting, you know, and not at major, you know, a Power 5 conference or D1 school. He's playing, you know, 1-2A, but it doesn't matter. You know, at this point, we've seen plenty of, you know, quarterbacks with 1 year of experience come in and, you know, they need time, but they don't get it. So, anyway, I digress. All right, let's move on. Let's get to our final segment of the day, and it's garbage time. And I had something lined up for garbage time, but it's really irrelevant. You know, it's not something that really is worth it when I got more comments here that I feel like are worth garbage time. So let's just get back to the comment section. I see some more comments, and I think I want to take, that was such an interesting conversation that we just had from the comment that Dog made. And maybe another gem or two in here. I don't know. We may be able to unearth. So let's get back to the comment section. Let's see. Where did we leave off? I think I left off at my man, Yikes. I left off at my man, Gregory Lightbody, who wrote, I can definitely see the Raiders trading Derek Carr to Washington, but he's not worth 2 first-rounders. I could as well. Oh, let me just say this right now while I got you guys here and I got your ear. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing, and also hit the like button. 74 likes right now, over 240 of you out there, close to 250. please hit the like button if you haven't already hit the like button. Let's get that thing up to at least 100 likes before this thing is all said and done. I really appreciate you guys. That said, I could see Washington being interested. I could see them picking up the phone and hitting up the Raiders for Derek Carr and seeing what it would take. But again, 2 first-round picks? No, Derek Carr's not worth that. And that's why I said you may be desperate, but you can't be desperate enough that you're willing to mortgage the future. And I haven't listened to Hurney or Mayhew yet. But I get the sense that they're going to say that. They're going to say, we don't want to mortgage the future. We feel really confident about, the present. That we don't want to mortgage the future just to try to capitalize on the present. Again, I've always told you, I don't mind mortgaging the future. The Rams are showing you that you can do that, but you better win. If we got nothing to show for it, after it's all said and done, the dust settles, the smoke clears, you mortgage the future and we don't win a chip, and now we're going to suffer for the next 7 to 10 years because of the things you've done over the last 7 years, and now we got nothing to show for it, I'm pissed as a fan. I'm pissed. I don't mind the Rams going all in because they've played in the Super Bowl. They've been to the divisional round. They've been to the playoffs multiple times. They've actually played in a Super Bowl and lost. So they are close. So they can push all of their chips to the center of the table. We were 7-9 and a division winner. That doesn't constitute giving up future assets to try and win now. That doesn't, those two things aren't comparable to me. Go 11-5, win a playoff game, and get bounced in the divisional round, and now we're having a different conversation. Yeah, you can push some of those chips to the center of the table, and I'm on board because we were close. And maybe this player pushes us over the top. But we're not there yet. Let's see. Imagine being a Raiders fan starting 6-3 and ending 8-8. Right. That's the name of the YouTuber here. Right. So the NFL should replace the Pro Bowl and have a first round bowl where the 2 worst teams play each other for the first round pick so no one tanks on purpose. There's so many things wrong with that logistically, from a player standpoint, from a competitive standpoint. That can never work. That can never work. We talked about that on this podcast. Someone had suggested that and I talked about it, but I took a step back and I analyzed it, and it's so wrong from so many levels, on so many levels, and from so many angles. You just could never do anything like that. Let's see. Bob Esther says, I think Marty and Martin and Ron all like each other. They should work well together. Well, that's why he hired them, because he knew he could work well. He's already worked with Marty Hurney in the past, and I feel like he felt like Martin Mayhew was a guy that was going to fit in really well with what they were doing. Wade Stone says, if Dallas tags Dak, we should offer a huge amount to him. It will either make Dallas have to match or be forced to trade him to a divisional rival for 2 first-round picks. So it just all depends on the franchise tag that he receives. Is it exclusive or non-exclusive? If it's an exclusive right franchise tag, then you can't make an offer to Dak. Only the Cowboys can negotiate with him. If it's a non-exclusive franchise tag, that would make him susceptible to other offers, and then Dallas would have to match, or they would receive the 2 first-round picks. But if Dallas tags him, I think it would be with the intent of, it probably would be a non-exclusive this year. Like daring somebody to come and take him away, and if they did, they'd get 2 first-rounders for him. So, again, that Dak situation is interesting, because I think the Cowboys could go in a multitude of different directions there. That's another thing worth taking a look at this offseason. Kevin the PRF, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. I consider Sweat our second most important long-term player. I wouldn't trade him at all. I knew what you were saying. I knew you weren't advocating trading Montez Sweat. You were just asking, well, if you don't think we can sign him long-term, why not go ahead and get something for him now? that would be of long-term benefit to us in a quarterback. And I understand that thought process, but I want to win now. And having Montez Sweat gives us the best chance to win now. And again, it's not like Montez Sweat is 5 years into, or 4 years into his rookie deal. He's only 3 years into that rookie deal. So, he's going into his third season, meaning if we were to play out his entire rookie contract, you got 3 years, because we're going to pick up the 5th-year option. Whether we extend him out or not, we're picking up the 5th-year option. So it's 3 years left. And then you still have the option to slap the franchise tag on him. If you said, there's no way we're re-signing him long term, you wouldn't say that out loud. Internally, you could come to it's just like the Steelers. When they slapped that franchise tag on Le'Veon Bell, the second time at least. The first time, I think it was with the intent of signing him long term. That second time, they had no intention, I don't think, of signing him long term. They said, all right, we're gonna ride you till the wheels fall off. And he knew that. That's why he didn't sign it. Because they were going to ride the shit out of him, and then they were going to let him go. And he wasn't going to have much tread left on the tires. It didn't work out for him, but that was the thought process. Captain Spartan 04 says, talking Senior Bowl, why was they hyping up that Wisconsin O-lineman so much? He wasn't impressive. That Grambling State guy was truly pancaking. Feels like Trey H versus Myles Garrett all over again. Well, the Wisconsin, it wasn't just Wisconsin. It was like some Division III Wisconsin school. Like Wisconsin of Madison. I don't know what school he went to, but you talking about the Megahertz guy or Meshertz guy or whatever his name was. I didn't watch the Senior Bowl. I usually don't watch the Senior Bowl. I want to go to the Senior Bowl, but watching it on TV doesn't really do much for me. Watching the practices is cool and all, but I just listen to people that were there. That's kind of what I gather from that. I let them tell me who had a great week. Everybody, you listen to them, everybody had a great week. Anyway, because he's a Division III guy, and he had to prove himself, and he came there and he played his ass off, and he won the award for the best defensive player at the Senior Bowl. So he got hyped up, but I think it was justified. And it's not just the game. If you just watch the game, you can't just watch the game. You got to go through practices. This guy broke his hand in practice and didn't want to come out. Like he's a tough guy. And he was out there in practice. I watched a couple clips of him pancaking guys in practice. So, he played well in practice. And I think they put more stock in the actual week of practice than they do the game. So, JP says, if Washington decides to draft a quarterback, this staff will be able to develop him. First time in a while, I feel like we won't F it up, unlike Gruden when that staff didn't give a shit. Well, Gruden didn't really have a lot to say so in matters. That's why he came out and said what he said, in an article, a week ago, where he talked about Daniel Snyder coming off of his yacht and essentially making a pick. And he's talking about the Dwayne Haskins selection. But anyway, I digress. Appreciate that, the dazzling urbanite. Really appreciate you. High Level Entertainment says, what's your background in sports? Did you play in high school? I did play in high school. So quick synopsis. Played basketball in middle school. Played JV in high school up until 10th grade. I played baseball. I was a baseball player growing up. My mom would not let me play football. So I was late to the football game in terms of playing. I was a massive football fan. I was an NBA and an NFL fan growing up. I was a Major League Baseball fan too. But I loved football and basketball way more than I did baseball. I loved playing baseball, but that's the sport I was allowed to play, that and basketball growing up. So by the time I got to football, I was a good athlete. I wasn't a great athlete, Not great enough that you haven't played football in your life and you show up trying to play football in 11th grade. They're not taking the time to help you with the shit that you should have learned when you were 7 years old. So I was way behind the 8 ball. I never played organized football before. That shit that you play out in the streets don't count. And I played a ton of that. But there was no denying that I could play receiver. And had I went to a school where I used to envy Percival Harvin because we grew up right in the same area, and he went to a school in Virginia Beach named Lansdowne, and they were a wide open offense. 5 wide receiver sets, throwing the football. Those schools like Princess Anne and Salem and all those Virginia Beach schools, man, they were spreading you out. They were throwing the ball, and even some of the Chesapeake schools spread you out, throwing the football all around the yard. And I'm like, if I played at one of those schools, I would have got some run. But I didn't. I played in a ground and pound school where we had 2,000-yard rushers every year I was there, essentially. That tells you how much we ran the football. So there wasn't a lot of balls to go around. There wasn't a lot of reps for guys that weren't starters at receiver, which I wasn't because, again, I got to football late. But I had a great coach. He taught me a lot. And he knew what I could do. He knew I had some talent. He knew a lot of us. There were a few of us that could play, but we just didn't get any opportunities. I was a baseball guy, though. And I'm going to just tell this story real quick. What really, first of all, I wasn't mentally where I needed to be able to contribute in football. But I'm not going to tell all of that story. I'll just say this. I chose baseball over football because I was better at it. And that pretty much doomed me in terms of playing football. But I chose baseball. I was a baseball guy. I was a team captain on the baseball team. And we were good. We weren't great, but we were a good team. So, let's see. Nathan Foster says, best linebacker, pure linebacker coming out in the first round. I don't know. There are a bunch of names that are being boundied about. I can't tell you. It's probably Xavier Collins out of Tulsa. But I haven't watched any film on any of these guys. So I'm not going to sit here and fluff you. I'm not going to do it. Again, when I'm done, you'll know. I'll give you my rankings. I'll tell you who I think is the best. I can't tell you right now. Let's see. See. How long have we been at it? Hour and 30. All right, so we're gonna wrap this thing up in the next 5 minutes. We'll get out of here. Six Sage says, nowadays playing a guy sooner than later seems to be the development process. It does, because most people adhere to the notion that you can't learn sitting on the sidelines. Like there's only so many mental reps you can take before you got to actually prove you can do it on the field. And certain experiences will make you a better quarterback, and you can't get those not playing. And to a certain degree, they're right about that. Some guys, though, aren't ready to play right away, and you do more damage to them throwing them out there than letting them sit and learn. And so, but you don't know what guys are which. It's hard to tell, So, we'll see. Captain Spartan is pointing to a comment here from King Nat, who says, Louie, did you hear about Andrew Luck wanting to come back? I haven't. Somebody mentioned it earlier. I haven't seen it. But it wouldn't shock me. I just thought it would have happened already if it was going to happen. But it doesn't mean that he's not getting the itch. I told you, once his body fully heals, and who am I to say how long it's going to take him to feel good again and miss the game? Remember, maybe that's why the Colts aren't so, hung up on trying to get somebody, because they still own Andrew Luck's contract. If he were to come back out of retirement, it'd be as an Indianapolis Colt. So maybe that's why we haven't heard Indianapolis all in on doing anything aggressively. I don't know. Maybe not. We'll see. Protect Sports says, what team fits Justin Fields the best? I don't know, because it's not about what team fits him best. It's schematically, what are you going to do to make Justin Fields feel comfortable as a quarterback? That's any quarterback. It's not just Justin Fields. It's any quarterback. Part of the reason the Chargers were so successful in year one with Justin Herbert is because they took their offense and they tailored it to what he did best at Oregon. And teams that are most successful, they do a really good job of doing that. You know, like I think that was part of the problem with Jared Goff in L.A. Like, he's not a stretch zone read quarterback, you know, bootleg guy. Like, you're asking him to do some things that he's really not comfortable doing. And he did it for a while there. And I think he's a great play action fake quarterback, Jared Goff is. You know, but you got to protect him. And, you know, him being mobile and on boots and things, that's not who he is. He doesn't throw well on the run. That's not Jared Goff. He needs to be in the pocket. And, you know, it's just about what are you going to do to make a guy comfortable? You know, Joe Burrow, for me, is the best example of this at the collegiate ranks. What was the biggest difference between 2017 Joe Burrow and 2018 Joe Burrow? 2018 Joe Burrow and 2019 Joe Burrow? Offensive play caller. Joe Brady comes in 2019 and he says, all right, this is what you're good at. This is what we're going to do. We're going to open up the field and we're going to allow you to just survey the field. And we got talent all over the place. We got Marshall. We got Chase. We got Jefferson. We got Edwards-Helaire. We got all this talent. You know, we got Moss. We got all this talent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up. Empty set. Our guys against theirs. You are allowed to see the field. And you just sit back there and you pick them apart. And what did he do? He picked them apart. It was an offense that fit Joe Burrow to a T. You want to switch it up? Maybe Joe Burrow can adapt and be malleable in any situation, but that's what he does best. Let me see what the defense is in. Let me see where my guys are. Empty set. They want to come after me? I'll get it to one of my playmakers quickly. So, I don't know. I just think it's all about how can you make him comfortable? How can you find what he does best and accentuate that more so than trying to make him fit into your scheme and what you're doing? If that makes any sense. Anyway, all right, let's get out of here, man. I've already been here long enough. I appreciate y'all chopping it up with me. Again, if you haven't already done so, please, please, please subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also hit the like button. 240 of you are out there, only 103 likes. Please hit the like button on your way out. Let's get those likes up. I really appreciate y'all for getting it up over 100. That means a lot. It does a lot for the video itself. But you know what else does a lot for it? 125, 150 likes. So keep hitting that like button if you haven't already done so. Really appreciate you guys. But that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on this 136th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Can't thank you guys enough for continuing to rock with the kid as we get closer to Super Bowl 55. I got some big things coming up with the brand and on the channel. So you guys stay tuned, stay locked in. We'll talk more about those things on Friday. And of course, Friday we will be focusing solely on Super Bowl 55 matchups, outcomes, things of that nature. We'll deep dive Super Bowl 55. So come prepared on Friday to talk about Chiefs and Bucks. It should be a fantastic football game. Bart Scott. Can't wait. But until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie T. You guys, have a good one. Take care.
Louie T Network.